of our staff work in community education programs, and parents have already been reimbursed for these e-learning days when their children were not able to attend daycare, participate in activities and such. Yet this bill would propose that the employees there who chose not to work still get paid, even though no revenue is coming in for those days. The cost of this legislation in Farmington this year alone is $280,000. We are proposing $3 million in reduction for 23-24 school year, despite the governor's proposal on funding. That's 3.5 teachers we won't be able to save, 3.5 counselors, teachers, mental health support workers.
Bill, and we look at the minimum wage, we project that the increase to our district will be $3.4 million. And that increase will be affected in 3 primary areas. It is part of our community education, which would increase by $1.1 million, primarily in our childcare areas. What that means is, because this is a fee-based program, we will have to raise the fees for parents so we can provide childcare. That estimated raise in fees would make us the highest childcare provider in our area and essentially take us out of that market. The second is in our food service area, which we project would be a $452,000 increase. Although the state is proposing to pay for meals, that does not include the a la carte part of what is provided to students. Those items would have to also be increased. And then there is the general fund, which is a $1.7 million increase. That increase would have to come from other parts of the district. So to put this in perspective, the $1.1 million in community ed is the equivalent of 25 childcare workers. The $1.7 million in our general fund is the equivalent of 17 social workers, counselors, intervention specialists that we could have in the classroom. And finally, there are costs not accounted for in the bill. If the wage is a minimum of $25, then we will have to adjust our longevity steps. Our contracts are currently structured to provide longevity increases for a number of years.
This means very steep cuts the following school year, such as cuts to tenured and probationary teachers, support staff, mental health support for students, change of teaming school models, and less classroom support for EL learners and student activities. If districts are no longer allowed to levy for the cost, then we need 100% state aid. Without permanent funding increases, either in support of this bill or other educational costs, such as an increase to formula, this additional cost, both monetary and decrease of staff, will be extremely difficult to implement.
We also want to be in the record to just identify the fact that this can present cost pressures within contracts. As you know, school districts have limited funds to invest in their various levels of operation. One of the concerns we have is that if we have to allocate more money onto the wage side of the contract, that those funds will come out of funds that we're trying to make available for investments in new school buses, safety initiatives like that. So we just want to raise that one. We do also have concern just about the way that the bill is worded, that it seems to put the onus on the contractors to pay the employees this level, but doesn't necessarily put the onus on the school districts to acknowledge the total costs that need to come into play here. With regards to lines 1.10, 1.11 on the amendment, I've talked with a number of our operators, and we do training every year on how to deal with student behavior. I haven't found an operator yet who believes that we need 16 hours of training to make that happen. And so some sort of flexibility within the contract side to acknowledge what our actual training needs are would be appreciated. In addition, just not knowing exactly who we're identifying as needing the training. So if I'm a bus mechanic, I'm working the shop, I'm servicing the contract, but I'm not engaging with students at all, do we need to have those types of people go through mandatory training for services that they're not going to be providing? And then lastly, the provisions on 112 through 113 on the amendment. We appreciate the acknowledgement about the impact that contractors have on snow days. Right now, we receive revenue from the districts in the majority of our contracts for days in which services are provided. And so at 5 o'clock in the morning, when our operators are told that it's a snow day, that we're not driving, we have to inform our drivers that they're not working that day. At the same time, in the majority of cases, we're not getting revenue from the school district those days. So if we are choosing to pay our drivers for those days, that's coming out of the operator's pocket, not out of the school district's pocket. So we appreciate that there's some clarification around here, that there is some level of expectation that districts need to provide the resources for those drivers to be paid on those snow days.
So some things that, the four folks that testified against the bill, there was a significant amount of, I don't know exactly what word to use on it, but it's just not accurate.